You know what? Actually, maybe we should do like a tier list of characters from Crime and Punishment. Yeah, that's actually a nice idea. Let's do it. I don't have anything prepared, so I don't know how it's going to go. I'm not going to do it live, but maybe I can just give you like a big screen and then make myself small somewhere here. No, somewhere here actually. Yeah, here. Okay, so now that I am small here somewhere, like, no, because you actually... Okay. You get the point. You probably see the tier list right now, I guess. I hope. Oh, but actually, maybe, you know what? Maybe not by humility, maybe by pride. Let's judge them by pride. So, like, S tier is going to be pride, like the most prideful characters from the novel. And then F tier is going to be the most humble characters. So, yeah, Razumihin obviously goes to F tier because he is, like, literally the embodiment of that quote from C.S. Lewis. The quote goes like this. Do not imagine that if you meet a really humble man, he will be what most people call humble nowadays. He will not be a sort of greasy, smirmy person who is always telling you that, of course, he is nobody. Probably all you will think about him is that he seemed a cheerful, intelligent chap who took a real interest in what you said to him. If you do dislike him, it will be because you feel a little envious of anyone who seems to enjoy life so easily. He will not be thinking about humility. He will not be thinking about himself at all. And so this is like, yeah, this is literally Sonia and Razumihin. Sonia is more of this like smirmy person who is telling you that she's nobody, which, like, you know, I'm not trying to judge her or anything. I really like Sonia, but it's just that when you look at this quote, then she's more of this smirmy person, and Razumihin is actually the most humble one because, like, he literally fits the description so well. It's incredible. Sonia, I don't think that Sonia should be F tier because she's more of this like smirmy person who's telling you that she's no one. So I don't think that she fits, you know, she doesn't really fit the quote, and I'm basing my opinion on that quote. So yeah, I still think that she is pretty humble just by another definition maybe or something like that. She would actually, I think that she would go like above Razumihin, like one level above Razumihin. Okay, wait, one moment. When it comes to tier lists, what are the letters, the levels? Because I don't remember. Well, you probably see what I decided to do. I guess we will just add F. Yeah, we will just add F, and then we will pretend that the letter E does not exist in the alphabet, because I think that would be too many tiers, and we don't really have that many characters. Okay, so now that we figured that out, Razumihin goes to F tier, and then I guess Sonia would go to D tier then. Yeah, Sonia would go to D tier. And now, okay, and so now, interestingly, Marmeladov, I think, would be somewhere closer to humility than pride. And listen, because I have an explanation. I think that Marmeladov and Sonia are actually very similar to each other in the sense that I would still say that Sonia is more humble than Marmeladov, but I also think that they actually are pretty similar. Which is interesting considering that Marmeladov is was her father. So I wonder whether Dostoevsky maybe did that on purpose, that they are actually kind of similar as a family. And the reason for it, basically, because like maybe you see the resemblance, but if you don't, then you probably think that I am out of my mind. But the thing is that if I were to tell you to point me to two characters who think that they are just worthless and they are just nothing, you would have to point me to both Sonia and Marmeladov. They're both thinking and saying so many times that they are worthless. And of course, on one hand, you can say that, like, you know, oh, but Sonia was forced to do what she was doing, and so it was kind of more complicated. But I think that Marmeladov's situation is also very complicated because, like, you know, considering that an addiction is more of an illness, kind of hard to say that it's a choice that he was drinking so much because, because an addiction is more of an illness, you know? Like, you cannot just say to a person, like, oh, you know, Marmeladov, did you maybe think about, you know, not drinking? Yeah, just, you know, wonderful idea, just stop. Like, that doesn't work like that. And so I think that Marmeladov's situation is actually also very complicated, and it's not as simple as, you know, him just doing bad stuff just because. And so I think that Marmeladov and Sonia are very similar to each other when it comes to this feeling that they have, that they are worthless, that they are just like the most worthless person ever, and they basically call themselves nothing and stuff like this. So I think that they are pretty similar. I would not put them on the same level because I think that Sonia has more humility, just because. I don't know, I just think so. Wait, now I'm thinking about this. No, but Marmeladov had to be more prideful. Like, come on, they can't be on the same tier. He has to be on like... Okay, wait, I actually have to see what I'm doing here. I'm going to write it for myself. Here's Razumikhin. Here would be Sonia. Yeah, Marmeladov has to be C tier. I mean, come on, he's not going to be D tier. Did he actually do like anything bad outside of his addiction? I don't actually know. I don't remember. I don't really think so. Yeah, so I think that he is actually a very, very complicated character here. Yeah, I think that he is kind of in between, because calling him prideful doesn't really sit right with me, but then calling him humble also doesn't sit right with me. So I think that Marmeladov is probably somewhere in between, like 50-50. So yeah, let's say that C tier is going to be for characters that are kind of 50-50. We can't really say for sure because maybe they are too complicated to judge, or maybe they did some very bad stuff but also some very good stuff or something like that. Yeah, C tier is going to be 50-50. And I would put Marmeladov there. Okay, so maybe let's now point to some prideful characters. Like, who would be in the S tier? I think that definitely Wuzhin, because like, come on, he was the most prideful character, I think. Him or Svidrigailov. But Svidrigailov is kind of more complicated. I don't know, because Svidrigailov, he did not... Because the thing is that, like, Wuzhin was thinking about himself constantly. Like, he was just constantly thinking about his own image, how other people view him. He basically, like, I don't think that he had any life outside of thinking about his own image. Svidrigailov is kind of more complicated because I don't really think that he was thinking about himself that much, but he was definitely doing stuff as if he believed that he's above others, in a sense. So like, he was not actively thinking about himself, but it's almost like he had this internal belief that he's just better, and so he can transgress, basically, and use others and just hurt others for his own pleasure. So it's kind of interesting. They both definitely go to S tier, but I don't know if I would say that Svidrigailov was more prideful than Wuzhin. Because I guess it really comes to the definition. Like, what do you think pride is? Is it more like thinking about yourself, like actively thinking about yourself? Or is it more like, you know, you don't even have to think about yourself, it's more what you internally believe about yourself or something like this? I feel like I should put Svidrigailov on like the first place of being prideful, but then again, I kind of want to put Wuzhin on the first place just because I personally don't like him. I also don't like Svidrigailov, but Wuzhin was like, oh, like Svidrigailov was kind of like just... Yeah, I guess, I don't know, maybe, I think that I know why that is. Because Svidrigailov is so bad that it's actually kind of difficult to meet people like this in real life, you know? Because like, he is this level of being not really good person that you're probably not going to find a lot of people in your life, or at least I hope so, that are going to be similar to him. But when it comes to Wuzhin, oh, you're going to find a lot of people like this in your life. So I guess I probably have some sort of like projection going on or something. But yeah, I guess this is why I kind of feel like it. Interesting. Okay, so going by that, I think that Svidrigailov should be on the first place and Wuzhin on the second, because... yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of feelings for people like Wuzhin. Yeah, and then from other prideful characters, we have to point out Katerina, because Katerina was prideful. She was extremely prideful. She definitely goes to S tier as well. Probably on the last place, I think. So it would be Svidrigailov, Wuzhin, Katerina. Yeah, I think that's the correct order. Or actually, is Katerina more prideful than Wuzhin, maybe? Oh my gosh, I feel like she kinda is, but at the same time, I really want Wuzhin to be high on the pride scale. Well, they both cared a lot about their image, but I guess Katerina was just like talking about it in a sense. Yeah, no. Łużyn is more prideful than Katerina, because Katerina was always just pointing out that she was like, you know, from an aristocratic family, something. So she was just saying stuff, basically. She kind of believed it, and she was just saying it. Yeah, and that was basically it. But Łużyn, when he cared about his image, he was able to do some nasty things towards others in order to kind of like, you know, make his image better or something like this. So I think that this means that Łużyn is more prideful than Katerina. Because yeah, his image was basically more important to him than the lives of different people. So that's not very nice. And now, as we're talking about the prideful characters, I think that we should talk about Raskolnikov, of course. And I actually think that he does not go to S tier. Because characters in S tier, I think that what you can see in the characters in S tier is that they are kind of like, they are not even thinking about the things that they are doing, in a sense that like they are able to do bad stuff, and they are not going to like try to justify doing bad stuff, while Raskolnikov was actually struggling so much with this. And he even said it himself. I think when he was talking with Sonia, when he visited her to tell her that he's the murderer, he was saying that, you know, when he was laying in his bed and he was thinking what Napoleon would do, he figured that Napoleon probably wouldn't think about this thing and he would just go and murder the pawnbroker. And I think that he was correct in it. I think that those people that he's describing, even though he's describing them as some sort of like, you know, great person, well, he's definitely describing something, but I don't think that his labels are correct. But he's definitely describing something, and he's describing people who are very prideful. And so people in S tier, those are the people who do not search for any sort of justification for their bad actions, while Raskolnikov was actually searching for it, in a sense. Yeah, his justification was not really... Yeah, well, he was a very troubled person. Let's just put it like that. But yeah, I would actually put Raskolnikov in A tier, I think. Because as he was saying, his own words, people like Napoleon would not even think about doing bad stuff. They would just do bad stuff if it benefited them. And Raskolnikov struggled a lot with it. He struggled before committing the crime, and then he struggled after committing the crime. Like, he could not stop thinking about it. And even if he was coming to some sort of conclusions, like, you know, oh, but she was just a louse, blah, 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 blah. Still, I think that people like Napoleon would not even consider that. You know, Napoleon, like people like Napoleon, don't even have to think that, oh, the pawnbroker was a louse or something. Like, no, people like Napoleon wouldn't even care to acknowledge the existence, like the living life of a person. They would just do what's in their interest, I think. But Raskolnikov was struggling so hard to kind of justify everything that he did. So I think that he goes to A tier. He's not S tier. He's kind of like getting close there, but definitely not. He's definitely not there. Which, yeah, if he were there, then we would not have the ending that we had. So that's kind of also that. Okay, also, why do I speak as if someone is chasing me? Sorry for that. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just really want to finish this video because it's so long and I still have to edit it and everything. And it's just... I'm having so much fun with it. Like, don't get me wrong. This is probably my favorite video that I did on the channel. And just in general, Dostoevsky is, oh my gosh, so good. But it's long. I'm not going to make the joke. This is a Christian channel. Okay, then who else do we have? Oh, I guess Dunya, his sister. That's a complicated one. Yeah, that's a complicated one. Dunya... Thing is that Pulcheria, their mother, described Dunya as prideful. When she was saying that Dunya is actually very similar to Raskolnikov. And I think that Razumikhin also said that Dunya is similar to Rodion. I think so. Yeah, he did, I think. So we have two people who said that Dunya is similar to Raskolnikov. And so she is a little bit prideful. She definitely is. But she's not on the same level as Raskolnikov. She definitely isn't. She definitely has like good moral values and stuff like this, which I mean, good moral values. What even is that? Everyone has different definition of that, I guess. But I guess she did have good moral values, according to me. So going by that. But really, because think about how Dunya was trying her best to change Svidrigailov. When she was working for him. And literally, even though, she heard so many bad things about him, like really, really bad things, she was still trying to give him moral lessons and everything like this. And she really cared about that. So I guess she is pretty moral. So I wouldn't put her on the same tier as Raskolnikov. Because I just think that if you reach the like S tier level of being prideful, then you kind of don't care about morality anymore, I think. Because you just care about your own gain in some sort of way. That's kind of my understanding, I guess. But Dunya cared about morality. So she definitely put morality above herself in some sort of way. So I guess if you put anything above yourself, then you're not going to S tier or A tier. So she's not going there. I think she's probably going to be B tier. Yeah, I think that she's going to be B tier. Because also, you know what? Yeah. Because you know what? She has those like moral values and everything. But I think that if any character from Crime and Punishment could be guilty of being holier than thou, then that's probably Dunya. I still really like her, like, don't get me wrong. I really, really like Dunya. So I'm not trying to criticize her. But yeah, going by everything that I said, we're going to put Dunya in B tier. And now, who else do we have here? Okay, so what do we know about Lebeziatnikov? I guess he was pretty young, and I guess he also kind of had this sort of like youthful pride. You know what I mean? When you are young and you think that you figured everything out, and you're like, how is it that everyone older didn't figure it out, and now I am so young and I know everything? When you're young, you can kind of get yourself into this thinking. And so he had this pridefulness about himself. But then again, that's kind of like a very low-key pride, It's not anything that serious. It's not anything that dangerous or anything like that. But I still think that he has some humility about himself, because think about his interactions with Sonia, or just like what he was saying about her. He said, for example, that he would really, really want to be intimate with Sonia. But then he said that, if she doesn't initiate, then he's not going to try anything, and he's going to be completely okay with that. So I guess you have to have some sort of humility, because like when we compare that to characters like Svidrigailov, then yeah, that's very different. And also because, maybe this doesn't really speak that much about pride and humility, but I think that Lebeziatnikov saying that even though he doesn't agree with taking an oath, he's going to do that if it means helping Sonia. I think that you have to have some sort of humility in order to do that, because he basically, when you think about this, he kind of like compromised himself, in order to help someone, to help Sonia. So I guess you have to have some sort of humility to do that, because I don't really think that a very prideful person would be able to, basically compromise himself and do something that he doesn't really internally agree with, but he knows that it's going to help someone else. Yeah, I think that a very prideful person would never do something like this. So Lebeziatnikov doing that kind of adds him some points, some humility points, I guess. But now, where can we really put him on the tier list? Maybe C tier? Yeah, I think C tier is right, because he was kind of 50-50. I think that you can really say things about him that would make him look very prideful, but then again, you can also say some things about him that would make him look very humble. Yeah, I think that C tier is right. Okay, so we have a nice tier list now. You probably see the images. I only see the names here. I think that I agree with it. I agree with my own opinion. I know, surprising. That actually is kind of surprising. Like, if you knew, oh my gosh. Sometimes I say something on a video and then I edit the video and I'm like, I don't agree with her. And then I have to edit, and I also have to edit my opinions, I guess. So, yeah. So that is actually surprising that I agree with myself. Okay, I guess we have Dunya and Raskolnikov, so we should talk about Pulcheria as well, their mother. Pulcheria is an interesting one, because I feel like if you consider Pulcheria as one person, then she would be very humble, because she's not really thinking about herself that much. But I think that Pulcheria kind of had this thinking that she almost like extended herself to her children in some sort of way. It's almost like she considered her children as herself, or maybe not like herself, but just like it was not three separate people, but it was the Raskolnikov family. I think that she had this sort of thinking. So if we consider that she had this thinking, then she actually looks a bit prideful, especially considering how she was treating Rodion, and basically, you know, she was always like, oh, you wrote this amazing article, you're going to be an amazing statesman one day, or something like that. And and she was always just basically thinking the best of him, to the point where it was really not good, because like I remember the first time when she went to Raskolnikov, she said to him that like, oh, she's sure that he would never do something bad. And it's like, you cannot, like, that's impossible. That's literally impossible. But was it like really pridefulness? I don't know. It's kind of, Pulcheria is very complicated, I think. She was definitely not thinking about herself, but she was definitely thinking about like the social position of her family. Yeah, I guess that, yeah, this is kind of it. She was thinking a lot about her family's image. Yeah. Oh, she did. Oh, she definitely did. Yeah, so I guess this is it. Where does it put her, though? I still feel kind of conflicted, because, like, I guess she was not thinking about, like, herself, but more about her family. So you could also say that there's some humility in that. Maybe let's put her in C tier. Yeah, let's put her in C tier. That's the 50-50 one. But where exactly? That's the question. Yeah, I think that I would actually put her between Marmeladov and Lebeziatnikov, and that's because Lebeziatnikov seems more humble to me, mostly because he had this sort of like youthful pridefulness, but I really think that once you get older, you kind of grow out of it. And I think that people like Lebeziatnikov definitely do grow out of it. Like, I don't know, there's just something about him that seems very pure to me. Like, he has a good heart. He's just kind of young, and, you know, he's just overwhelmed with all of those ideas. And I guess, you know what I think about Lebeziatnikov? I think that he's a perfect example of people who kind of like see that the world is really doing bad, because the world kind of always is doing bad a little bit. Like, come on, you have to agree with that. We have wars, we have everything. Like, you really would have to be blind not to see that the world is kind of doing bad. And I guess when you are young and you live in a world like this, and then you suddenly learn something new, like a new idea that shows you that, oh, if we only do this, then the world is going to be perfect and everyone is going to be happy and everything just, you know, it's going to be so amazing. I feel like it can really get in your head, because, you know, suddenly you feel that you found the solution to suffering and everything. And I guess it can kind of make you a little bit prideful, but I think that this pride just kind of hides grief for the world. I don't know if you know what I mean, you know? So I feel like deep down in Lebeziatnikov's heart, he feels grieved that the world is just not working correctly. And he just found this system and everything, and suddenly it's like, whoa, if we only do this, then it's going to be amazing and everyone is going to be happy. And yeah. And so I guess Lebeziatnikov, I would say, is kind of more like a person like this. Which I'm not saying that it's like bad to be like this, because, you know, I certainly also have those feelings. I definitely, when I discovered Christianity like very seriously for myself, I also had this feeling, and I still kind of do, you know, that like, oh, if we only do everything like it's said in the Bible, then everyone is going to be happy. Like, what? Why are we not doing it? I definitely also fall into this category, so I'm really not trying to criticize him. But yeah, but that would be Lebeziatnikov. And so I think that Lebeziatnikov, considering that he's still young, and just considering his heart, because I don't know, I feel like Lebeziatnikov really has pure intentions, and he has a good heart. He's just kind of confused because he's young and he's learning about everything, and he's just overwhelmed by all of those ideas. And yeah, it just looks how it looks, I guess. So Pulcheria, because we are actually talking about Pulcheria, Pulcheria goes between Marmeladov and Lebeziatnikov. And also, maybe I'm not right about my interpretation of Lebeziatnikov. I literally have no idea. Maybe I am just projecting because, yeah, that's a possibility. But it kind of seems to me that he is a character like this, Okay, let me check. How does it look? Is there anyone else that we have to figure out? I think that maybe Porfiry? I think the only one we can still say something about would be Porfiry. I guess for most of the novel he was just doing the detective stuff. But then at the end, the last conversation he has with Raskolnikov, he actually shows some human character, I think. Or at least I think so, because I don't know, maybe he was just acting. But no, I don't really think so, because he said that, he can arrest him right now. Maybe that was a lie, though. It's very hard for me to recognize when someone is lying, Maybe I should not admit to that, actually. Oh, maybe I should not. I'm probably going to include it anyway. No, but I don't think that he was lying. Come on. You know what I think about Porfiry? I think that he was a very curious person. Yeah, he was an extremely curious person. I think that actually solving this case was more about him being curious about the truth than winning, because he didn't have this energy of a person who's oh, I want to win this, I want to find this murderer and I'm going to do it. No, I think that he was actually very, very curious about this case, and he was genuinely interested. Just genuinely curious what's the truth. And I also think that it was not because he wanted to be this great investigator, the best investigator that caught the murderer. I don't really think that he was thinking about this. I think that he was mostly just genuinely trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So he couldn't be that prideful. I don't really think so. Also, Porfiry is actually related to Razumikhin, and if Dostoevsky was intentional about making family members similar to each other, then I guess just by being related to Razumikhin, Porfiry is definitely more humble. Yeah, but just because of that, just because of this thing, that I think that he really didn't care about being the best investigator on earth, but he was just genuinely interested in the case. I think that he is definitely more humble than prideful. Maybe not the most humble. Then again, we don't really know him. Because for some characters, we really know a lot about them and about their motives and everything. And Porfiry is we don't really know that much about him. He's actually probably D tier with Sonia. Yeah, I think that he is D tier. And maybe I think that actually Porfiry is more humble than Sonia, but my opinion is based on that quote from C.S. Lewis. And so, just to remind you, the humble person is a cheerful, intelligent chap who took a real interest in what you said to him. Porfiry was like that. But yeah, taking real interest in what you said to him, he was doing that constantly with Raskolnikov, which on one hand he had to because it was his job. But then again, I think that, you could have a very nasty investigator that wouldn't be interested in Raskolnikov. I think that Porfiry was genuinely interested in him. So yeah, I guess this is my list. If you have your own, you can, I don't know, write me down in the comments or something. Or if you disagree with me, then you can also write me down in the comments. Also, now that I look at it, it's so interesting to me that, as I was saying, I think that Sonia and Marmeladov are actually pretty similar, and it's so interesting that they both ended up with very prideful people, because Marmeladov was of course with Katerina, and he was always praising her, he was always constantly praising her, and he really believed in her own story in some sort of way, that she was this amazing aristocratic woman and everything, while he thought that he's just the most worthless person on earth. And then you have Sonia and Raskolnikov, who basically, Raskolnikov told her that he murdered 2 women, and Sonia was just embracing him and crying because of how much he has to suffer because of that. So yeah, I think that it's pretty similar, Marmeladov and Katerina, and then Sonia and Raskolnikov. The relationships are also kind of similar. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know. But I think that is interesting when you look at it like that. And maybe it was not intentional. Sometimes things like this happen. Or maybe it was just God's will for this book to look like this.